One of my very favorite radio personalities in the whole country. He's also done a TV talk show and an online show with Vice.com and New York Times bestselling author. The man does it all. Oh, and stand-up comedy, too. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Norton joins us in studio.
Hi, guys.
Kevin Bean Show. Hey, Mr. Norton.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. It's always a pleasure to see you, sir. I dipped in and out a little bit of your marathon appearance with Joe Rogan on his podcast last night.
Yeah, Joe's awesome. It's a weird. You get. I went right from the airport to Rogan because I knew he stayed late to do me a favor because he's going to New York today.
Right.
And when you sit down with Joe, you're in for a 3-hour discussion.
Yes, at least.
Yeah. But it's never boring. It feels good.
100 topics too, by the way. It's like watching ping pong or something. The way you guys go back and forth with. I mean, is there anything you didn't talk about last night?
No, I mean wherever you want to go, he goes. He's really conversationally, he's very weird. Joe can talk about pot for an hour, and then segue into freedom of speech, and then just talk about hookers. He's just awesome, and they're all things I like to discuss.
I have a hooker question for you,
sure,
because I did like I said, I was dipping in and out while I was doing other things last night, and when I turned it on, you were talking about the apartment you lived in with the black mold, which looked like the grossest thing I'd ever seen in my life. By the way. It's a miracle that you are alive today, living in that house for 3 years. And then he was trying to teach you how to breathe, and that went on for a while, and that was good radio. And then you started talking about hookers in Arizona. Now, I may have missed the beginning of the story, but did a hooker try to blackmail you, Jim?
No. What happened was I was joking about Warren Sapp because I was in Phoenix when that happened.
Oh, right.
Oh, during the Super
Was
Bowl.
that Super
Yes.
Bowl? Yeah.
Okay.
I had done shows, and then I was coming home, and Warren got busted. So I was talking about prostitutes and how I didn't get one there. No, it wasn't a hooker who tried to blackmail me. It was this girl I was talking dirty with. This was a couple of years ago, just talking. And she didn't know who I was or I was a comedian. We had met through someone else. And she was like, well, I'm going to find out your email and send these screen caps to your coworker. I'm like, who cares? Like, everybody knows I'm a dirtbag.
Right.
No one would be shocked.
You should have sent her your book. Been too late.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe you could send it to Simon & Schuster. Could you screen cap it and send it to them? There's nothing I'm embarrassed about with that. But it is funny. Sometimes I got to thank God that that I am who I am and I talk the way I talk because it's almost you become unblackmailable because I don't care if you tell people. Everyone knows I'm dirty.
You tell people.
I tell people,
So
sure.
what difference does it make if somebody else does?
Yeah, feel free to chime in. Feel free to share it as well.
I'm sure that being a stand-up comedian who is very real about his emotions and about his life, I'm sure that contributed a lot. But you are so much more open than almost anybody else is willing to be. How did you get to that point where you honestly don't seem to care what anybody thinks about you and can't be embarrassed?
Well, you know what? It's funny because I do to a certain degree, and you could embarrass me, but not with the normal Achilles heel stuff. But I have my moments, but it's just not the typical sexual stuff. And when I started doing stand-up in 1990, I noticed that the other comedians laugh more at the personal stuff or at the stuff you talk about that other guys weren't talking about. So that kind of was like, okay, I want the other comedians to like me. And if they laugh, it's like a vampire biting another vampire. It's just a bigger high. So I kind of went down that road. And when Opie and Anthony first got kicked off the radio in 2002, I was up in Montreal, did a show called Confessing It, which was done by a guy named Jeff, a friend of mine, who's he produced Tough Crowd. He booked it, and you had to tell a story you'd never told on stage.
Okay.
And so I told a story about having sex with a transsexual, and I had about some unprotected in a parking lot in Jersey City.
That sounds like the worst sex ever.
Well, for her it was. I'm sure for me it was.
For you it was fine.
Yeah, for me it was quite a delight. And I told another story from my childhood about me and my little friends who would when I was a kid, you explore with your little friends, and they were just other little boys and myself, doing what you're doing under a porch. We played a game called Monster Rain, which is where we would just take care of each other and yell Monster Rain because we didn't want to acknowledge what we were doing, so we pretended we were hiding from Monster Rain. So I told those stories and became bits in my act, but I realized that people responded to that type of honesty. So that was about 12 years ago. I got really into that stuff, talking about it. But it just felt good to get it out because, if you're ashamed of it and you're embarrassed about it, it's going to kill you, and it just
that was going to be part two of my question. Is do you feel that has contributed in a good way toward better mental health for you to be able to express all of those things that you might otherwise be spending a lot of time privately obsessing over?
I think so because I told Joe last night too. I'm a few days in. I'm trying not to be dirty anymore. Not as a person comedically, but the dirty texting and the obsessive on the computer. It's just eats away at your soul. There's nothing else but that. So I'm trying to like just.
How many days in?
Now, today's day 5.
Day 5, okay.
And I'm not going to be perfect with it, but I mean, just the obsession, the constant, like, getting to L.A. was a bad place for me. Like this, I was a dirty boy when I got to L.A., man. And it's like, this is like last night I watched a little bit of Fargo and I went to bed. Like, like normal. I got to get up to Kevin and Bean, like, just be a normal person. So I'm trying that because I want to see, like, what happens when I don't do that stuff for a while. Because it becomes obsessive and all-consuming.
Do you have an end date to the...
No, I want to see how it feels for a little while.
Right.
I don't know if I should or not. Like, how long do you go with it? I don't know. I got to see how it feels, and how
does it feel so far?
It's weird. Like, I feel like when you get off a plane, and any smoker knows. I quit smoking years ago. That feeling you get when you get out at LAX and you want a cigarette, that first drag of a cigarette, that beautiful, that high feeling you get. I keep thinking that's what's going to happen if I act out. Like, I want it so bad. I want it so bad. But I know, like, it's when I quit smoking, Colin Quinn said something to me. He said, the urge to smoke will pass whether you smoke or not. And that to me was such a revelation, like whether or not you give into it, it's going to go. So I kept saying this will pass whether you, so that's the same way I'm looking at it now, like whether you make this phone call or not. So I didn't bring my dirty computer with me. It's the first time in my life I have a computer that's completely clean on the road.
You have a specifically dirty computer?
Oh, yeah.
It's all dirt?
For me, it was always one laptop that I could never open without like it being on an angle in case I needed to shut it really quick. That one laptop, you don't know how many times I've closed that with my one clean finger. So now it's like, it's nice to have a nice clean laptop, a work laptop that I have nothing dirty on whatsoever.
Hey, anybody want to see my laptop?
I can open it in front of everybody. Mom, Dad, gather around. Go ahead, look at my search history.
This is the voice of our friend Jim Norton here on the Kevin and Bean Show. In a minute, we'll be talking about his new Epics special, which debuts next week. Jim, are you still struggling? Are you still having a fight about how much to masturbate with yourself?
I haven't in the last few days. That's the thing. Like that's a very tremendous struggle because that's so addictive.
You haven't fought it, or you haven't done it?
I haven't done it in today's day 5, and that I'm sure I'll do again. I mean,
Allie, do you want to back away at this point?
No, I think he's doing fine.
Okay,
he's doing fine.
Yeah,
Bless my eye.
Just checking it.
Yeah, she has like people can't see. She put up like a little windshield in front of her, which was kind of smart.
But why? I mean, why do you feel like that would harm you if you were to do that? I mean, that's healthy and that's normal and that's okay and you're allowed and
sure to do it like a normal person.
All those things.
Like you guys, when you do it, you probably do it like, okay, I'm going to put a few minutes aside and just, as they say, just kind of, as Opie would always say, get the poison out. Like just get that, like clear the mind a little bit.
Right.
But for me, it becomes this obsessive thing that you do, and it's almost like you're about to drink and you put the drink to your lips, and just as you're about to drink it, you put it down. Like I don't let myself go to where you're supposed to go.
We know that.
I'm an edger. So what happens is that like plays with like your biorhythms, your breathing. I realize I'm holding my breath. I'm like I'm getting close, and I'm stopping, and I'm like, no wonder I can't breathe properly. I'm messing with myself all day. And there's a lot of perverts out there that know exactly what I'm talking about. Like a lot of you driving to your work, what is this guy talking about? But half of you understand, like, oh my God, I do that, and hours are wasted. Hours.
So it's a slippery slope.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
And floor.
Yes. Okay. Well played.
Okay. There is no doubt that you are going to somehow die, and it's going to involve masturbation, right? When they find your body, that's going to be the story.
It's what I'm trying to avoid. You're not wrong.
Okay.
But I'm trying to avoid that just for the sake of my family having to explain what happened. But it wouldn't surprise me if that's.
But for your fans, that would be the only way they'd want to see you go. You would be a legend, Jim.
It really would. Like the accolades I'm missing now, I'm eventually going to get when I'm found dead with my dumb pants around my ankles, exactly. and a video on Pornhub still going. And I'm like, oh my God, he wasn't lying. He really does watch this stuff.
Jim Norton is here. We have to take a quick break, by the way. The special is called Contextually Inadequate. I can't believe I'm able to say those words either. Contextually Inadequate. It debuts on the Epics channel on Friday, a week from tomorrow. We'll talk more with Jim about that when we return right after this on K-Rock.
Oh, I am so irritated. I don't know what the hell's going on.
It's the Kevin and Bean Show. K-Rock.
Comedian Jim Norton with us on the Kevin and Bean Show right now. The new special is again on Epics, like the last one. This is called Contextually Inadequate, and it debuts everywhere next Friday, not just on the Epics channel, but on all their platforms, including online and on demand and on the app and the whole deal. Jim, what's great about this special?
It's funny. It's like whenever you shoot something, like you have to go out and promote it and go, I just like this one a lot because I defend Anthony Cumia in it, of course, and I have a nice hunk on Bill Cosby, and it feels like a lot of stuff that I wanted to do and be done with, like as far as material.
How do you approach Cosby in a way that you haven't already seen 1,000 other people do at this point?
To be honest with you, I haven't really watched anybody doing it. So I just go out and I just start talking about people defending him. I make fun of Felicia Rashad for defending him. I make fun of all the people doubting the women. I just give my own point of view on it, and I talk about I bring it back to myself. That's how I always tie in my own stuff about what the pervert I am. I just try to tie in what they're doing with what I'm doing,
right.
so I can make. I mean, not rapey stuff, but just the idea of being a dirtbag.
Are you friends with
answer
Hannibal
that question
Buress?
Properly, but I don't know. What's that?
Are you friends with Hannibal?
Yeah, I like Hannibal a lot.
What's it been like for him to kind of be the focal point, or are Bill Cosby fans so old that they don't have any way to get in touch with him? They don't understand how social media works, so he doesn't hear from them.
I don't think that any of them would attack Hannibal anyway, just because it seemed like when that clip first went out, they were trying to sink Hannibal. Like, comedian calls Cosby rapist. And then that one woman came out and went, yep, he is. And then but had those women not come out, everyone would be targeting Hannibal and how naughty he was to say that stuff.
Right.
So I don't think Cosby fans could have any beef with Hannibal because by the time they realize they're mad at him, all these women are out. So Hannibal is so irrelevant as far as what Cosby really did. What are they going to say?
For those of you that don't know, he was doing stand-up, and he talked about Bill Cosby.
Yes, it was in Philadelphia,
I
think.
it was Philly, okay.
And somebody just taped it on their phone and released it. He was like, Google Bill Cosby and rape. Like, Hannibal gave you a pathway to prove that he was right.
Yeah.
And so everyone just did it. Like, all right, Google Cosby and rape. And that was why. Had he not said that, it might not have been as smooth for him. But, I think he's fine with it. I mean, Hannibal is he's an odd bird, man. He's unflappable.
He's awesome.
He's really a funny dude.
He's so great on Broad City, too.
Yeah.
Are you able to, I don't know if you were a Bill Cosby fan or not at all, but are you able to enjoy comedians even if they're not good people off stage?
Yeah, most comics I know have demons. Cosby's a different one. I mean, to be a serial rapist is a little different than being a guy who had some incidents at home or who went to jail for drunk driving or who got into a fight because he was hot. Like Richard Pryor. Pryor's history, let's be honest, is not exactly one of delight. You know what I mean? I mean, there's been domestic violence issues. He's, yelled and screamed at people. He's been an ass at times. He's yelled a lot of awful. But again, that's a volatile guy. And there's a difference between being a volatile guy and a guy who drugs people and has sex with them when they're asleep. So Cosby is one that I look at and go, like, that's a hard one to not.
Right, it's hard to keep that out of the equation when you're watching or listening.
Especially a family-oriented comedian.
Yep.
So how can people suspend disbelief so much with a live performer and go, wow, he really is a family guy when 35 women or whatever are going, like, this guy, drugged me and raped me. It's like a weird psychology. I don't know how people suspend that disbelief.
Speaking of comedians, you wrote a very powerful piece, I thought. Was it for Time Magazine you wrote the piece about Trevor Noah?
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, for Time.com, yeah.
Time.com. It was really great, and it summed up a conversation we've had so many times on the air about how people insist on being offended. Like, they go out of there are things that legitimately and genuinely are hurtful and offensive to people. But a lot of times it seems like people are out there looking for something to be hurt and offended by. And you kind of tied that into the reaction of Trevor Noah once he was announced as the host of The Daily Show.
Yeah, I think people get addicted to the feeling. It's almost like no one feels like anyone listens to us. We all feel like we're just yelling into a room and no one can hear us. But if we're offended for some reason, then people pay attention. Like, people have figured out that by going, hey, my feelings are hurt, that's what stops the party. And they go, oh, what?
Yeah.
Tell us about it. That's our way of getting attention. It's like when you're a little kid and you cry. That's a kid's way of getting attention. So for adults, all of us feel like we're just anonymous and no one cares about us. So when people hear us, it makes us feel important and like we've gotten something done and like we've mattered. And that's what people have gotten addicted to.
But I think the issue here is the companies stopping the partying saying, what? Like, people always complain. But now it seems like one person can get an entire giant business in trouble, and it just seems like that's the path to destruction, right?
Because people in the business, they should
care
realize
too much.
They care way too much because they should realize it passes. Like, when you look at something that happened in 2 weeks, it's done. There's the next fake outrage. Look at ban Bossy, cancel Colbert, all this hashtag garbage. None of it means anything. It all passes. But the companies get frightened. They get a few calls. Like when Anthony got fired, Sirius got some calls from the Washington Post like, oh, my God. It's like, don't you guys realize something else else is going to happen that the media goes on to, and then the calls stop. There's no real outrage from the consumer. People don't care. Like, if you say something rotten on your show, there's not anyone in their car going, I don't want to listen to Kevin and Bean anymore. No one is going to be offended by it.
That's because they're tweeting us that.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I've destroyed everything I've ever touched.
Handled it just right, which is to say, hey, we like Trevor Noah, and he's going to be the host of the show and deal with it, basically, right?
Absolutely. I thought they were smart to stand by him, and I respected them a lot because they were getting a lot of heat for a short period of time.
Right.
And they're like, nope, this is our guy, and he's really funny, and he's the guy for the gig. So it was smart, because he really is. He's a very relevant comic.
We've been in meetings where people will say a sentence like, we want nobody to be offended. And that scares us to death because that's just not possible.
It's not possible.
Well, to show you it's not possible, it's like no matter who's running for Republicans and Democrats, the vote is always 51-49, 48-52, whatever. It's always that close. Literally, if you say you're pro-guns, you've offended half the country.
Yeah,
I'm pro-choice. Half the country wants me to hang myself. There's no way to make everyone happy. You lose half the people just by stating an opinion, no matter what it is.
After what happened to your friend Anthony losing his job over something that wasn't even said on the radio and wasn't even said on satellite radio, by the way, just something that he tweeted, does that ever cross your mind when you tweet that the same thing could happen to you?
Oh, yeah, eventually I'll sink my own boat. I mean, absolutely. You try to be careful. My thing is always, can I justify what I said? Can I back it up? Can I? Louis C.K. gave me a nice compliment one time at the Comedy Cellar. He said, you're really good at explaining why you feel the way you feel, like in my act. Like, I try to explain why I take a point. So it's almost like even if you don't like it, at least I've given you the reason I kind of came to this conclusion.
Right.
So I try to think that way when I tweet. Like, can I back this up? And
all right, let's play that game because
Sure.
I got a tweet here that I want to hear what you would say. And you got hundreds of retweets and favorites on this one. And this is I just picked this one out kind of random from the last week because this is the kind of tweet that I could see somebody could blow out of proportion and try to make you pay for it. I hope the next time I see Flo the Progressive Girl, it's in an ISIS video.
Oh, I'd like to apologize for anybody I might have offended with that tweet.
Because that's an awesome tweet, but I can see how somebody would say, Jim Norton, how could you do that? They're an actual terrorist organization who are actually beheading real Americans.
Absolutely, and I would say thank you very much.
Unpatriotic and blah, blah, blah.
That was my point?
That was exactly my point. I would thank them for clarifying my position. Yes, I'm tired of seeing her, and I hope the next time I do, she's reading a statement in an orange jumpsuit. Yeah, I would clarify that. But that's such an over-the-top thing. The way you describe that is it's such a ridiculous scenario. No rational person could believe I mean it. No one thinks that Flo is going to be beheaded in a video. It's like it's not a possibility. If you said that about a certain reporter who was overseas, people go like, wow, that's a little close to home. But even that, it's just a ridiculous, to me that's very
But I felt that was the case with the Trevor Noah jokes, is he was obviously just making over-the-top crazy jokes. He was kind of parodying people who really feel that way in some cases. And people still took him seriously.
You're correct. Yeah, people do. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. Because I think that people they take the one thing, like it's funny, the anti-Semitism, they know he's kidding, but they're like, well, those are real stereotypes. So what? Black guys' genitals are stereotypes. Irish drinking is a stereotype. Jews run showbiz is a stereotype. There's a million stereotypes, but, there's a lot of humor based in stereotypes. It doesn't mean that you're angrily reinforcing. To reinforce a stereotype through humor doesn't mean that you're standing on a soapbox, like one of the black Israelites in Times Square and saying it for real.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like there is humor in reinforcing something that is ridiculous and has been blown out of proportion.
Do you feel like at some point comedy clubs are going to be the last to fall for not being politically correct?
I don't know, man, because the club owners, I don't know. That's a good question. I never thought they'd go after live stand-ups, but they do. But there's enough good luck telling Doug Stanhope not to say something.
That's true.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of guys who will never give in to that, and you can always go to your own club. And no, I think club owners, the money that comes in, because there's too many comedians that have already been controversial that have performed at clubs that never hurt business. It never hurt with Dice was performing or Kinnison or any of the guys since then that have been controversial. So no, I don't think the clubs will be affected by it until it affects business.
Yeah.
Well, Jim is one of the best stand-ups out there, and you're.
Thank you.
We don't even have any live dates to sell this time. You're really just in town to talk about the Epic special, right?
Yes, and I'm actually really, really happy with this one, and I hope people like it. And it's on Netflix in 3 months, and it's on Epix this next Friday.
A week from tomorrow, yeah.
Thank you guys so much, man. I really appreciate it.
It is mind-blowing.
The Kevin and Bean Show.
Whether it makes sense or not is totally different.
K-Rock.